you just used, Karl, it comes up an awful lot. It comes up an awful lot when where there are conversations regarding resilience, and this is going to be a time, and for those of you who are watching, a conversation about exactly that, resilience. And let me say one of the reasons why, Karl, I've been so looking forward to our conversations because human connection and storytelling are part of the foundations of who you are. And it's almost as if there's no such thing as a thorough conversation about resilience without talking about the power of storytelling and the power of human connection. Would you take us through your own story, going back to when you were 15 and surviving two brain tumors?
Yeah, I mean, it was I've been an artist my entire life. I grew up drawing, painting, sculpting, big Lego kid, and I got my passion for storytelling from my dad. He's a really good storyteller, and I knew I wanted to study animation when I saw the first Toy Story film. I was like, "Ooh, that I gotta do that. That's so cool." And then, beginning of 2002, I started to feel like something wasn't quite right with me physically. I'd been a competitive swimmer growing up, so I knew what I was supposed to feel like. And it wasn't like, oh, my shoulder kind of hurts. It's like a general blah feeling. But
Mhm.
by August, they still hadn't figured out what was wrong with me, and I had lost 50 pounds, had sunken cheeks and eyes. I was really pale, started to get really bad headaches. So my parents took me for an MRI, and we were waiting in the cafeteria for another appointment when my pediatrician called and said he's going to drive up from another hospital to come talk with us. We saw him walking up with this big envelope in his hands. You could tell he'd been crying, and he brought us into a little side meeting room. And I remember I was sitting knee to knee with him in this big U-shaped chair with really high armrests, kind of leaning forward towards him, when he pulled out the results of the MRI and said, "Karl, you have two brain tumors." And it felt like I got punched in the chest. I actually moved backwards in my chair, and for the next 2 weeks, everything sounded like the adults from Peanuts, like wah 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 wah, because
Mhm.
never had the flu, never broken any major bones, never been stung by a bee. I'm pretty sure I've never been bitten by a mosquito. So to get brain tumor diagnosis at 15 years old was a complete sucker punch out of nowhere. But I got so much help from friends and family, and my high school adjusted my schedule, got me a tutor so I could still graduate on time, and people I barely knew were giving food and gifts and other support. So really inspired me to want to give back and help as many people as I could, because I'd probably be dead if it wasn't for all the help that I got. And it's something that really showed me the importance of community and having people around, these relationships that help you get through these difficult times, because there's a, I think, harmful myth in the, especially in America and in Western culture, about self-made success or self-made. You have to do things on your own. You don't need, asking for help is a sign of weakness, or that you can't really be successful unless you do it all yourself. And that's just nonsense, because nothing worthwhile or really impactful or impressive is done on your own. There's always something we get from other people around us, whether it's even just relying on the infrastructure and society and the world we live in. If you want to try and build something truly on your own, you basically have to wipe your memory and get dropped in the middle of a forest with not, like, naked, with no tools or anything, to any no previous knowledge of other people that you've learned from other people, and just try and survive on your own. And it's insane. You die really quickly. So the idea that we people don't or shouldn't need help from other people, or it's not worth helping other people, because otherwise it's a, like a sign of weakness or a sign of being less than, is nonsense. Because what really got me through and gets anyone through these difficult challenges, or helps them achieve anything worthwhile, is with the help of people around them.
That's so powerful. And there's so much in what you just shared as part of this storytelling. I understand that it's broad strokes of the brush, but everything from the initial reaction to what you experienced, and then at some point it turned into this, it transformed the way that you were journeying it to say, I want to help other people because you saw how much it helped you. First, let me pause and just say welcome to everyone if you're watching live or if you're watching the recording. I'm Rick Cram here with Karl Pontau. and we're talking about resilience. I'm the author of a soon to come out book called Plan to Be Your Best as You Navigate Pain. It's about how to transform a journey of pain into a journey of resilience and thriving in your own unique way. And so, one of the things that stood out, Karl, as I was listening to you, is I wonder how your story has changed over the years. How different is it now compared to through your teens?
Well, I mean, the that cancer diagnosis and the subsequent treatment and that whole experience was, it's one of the, like, it's the way I often describe it is, I wouldn't want to go through it again. I wouldn't wish on anyone else, but I can't imagine not having gone through it because maybe such a
Mhm.
better person and giving me the perspective and drive and kind of viewpoint I have now. And it really puts a lot of things in, I guess, a better perspective. And because one of the, it's a weird mix of emotions, even from the initial uh, getting told you had two brain tumors was one of the weirdest emotional cocktails I've ever felt because there was that initial hit of shock and disbelief and fear and the chest tightening up. But then at the same time, there was this layer of relief because I had been sick for 8 months and it was really frustrating. Like, what is wrong with me? Why can't they figure it out? So there was like this chaser flavor of, oh, I'm so glad we know what's wrong. Now we can do something about it. And that was probably one of the weirdest kind of mixtures of emotions I've ever felt at the same time. And then, um, like I said, it didn't feel real for 2 weeks. My
Mhm.
pediatrician said, don't go to the other appointment in Walnut Creek, drive up to Sacramento. The following morning, I had a 7-hour biopsy surgery and I was in the ICU for 2 weeks. And towards the end of the stay, a doctor came in with the biopsy results. I remember he walked in the room and said, "You got the good type of cancer." And I was like, "Excuse me?"
Mhm.
But now I realize in the grand scheme of things, it could have been a lot worse. If you had to pick a type of brain tumor to get, you'd probably pick mine because it was very treatable. It's not even like a remission thing anymore. They said it was like 90% chance of beating it and only 10% chance of it coming back in the first 5 years. It's
Mhm.
been over 20 now. And so while the when I got that news, which was really good news considering the circumstances, because there's some that are like glioblastoma where it's like you got 6 months and then you're dead, or like the best we can do is kind of delay things, but it's eventually gonna kill you because there's no like cure for it. They said basically, hey, we got this, we have a treatment plan that we know is like a 90% chance of working, and they kind of laid out the road ahead, which was 4 rounds of chemo and 20 days of radiation. And it was one of those things where it wasn't like it was a difficult decision or not, because it was
Mhm.
basically either like go through this or waste away and then eventually like organ failure and death from that. So even though the preferred path still was gonna be awful and no and uncomfortable and difficult, it wasn't like it was hard to choose that because it became like the mindset just, okay, it's gonna suck for a few months, but I just gotta keep pushing through and it's gotta keep moving forward and have that, stay focused on the light at the end of the tunnel. And that mindset of, um, I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna beat this thing. Be. I'm gonna be better. I'll be cured after I get through this.
Mhm.
Really helped me maintain a positive mindset and mental state, which is really important for your physical health. If you're depressed and stuff, like your immune system, there's a whole bunch of like physical things that makes it harder for you to deal with health issues if you're not in it mentally. Plus, I had all the people supporting me, all my friends from school and family that would come in and visit, or neighbors and people that I hadn't seen for years were like bringing gifts over and helping my family out. And so the amount of support that me and my family and I got from the people around us really made it a lot easier to get through. And that also really reinforced the idea that to get through these challenging periods, having people around you to help is important, and asking for help when you need it is important. And it's not, and it's also worth helping other people when they need it, because you never know when you're going to need someone's help. And if you've been kind of contributing to those relationships, then when you're down on a knee, someone will be there to help pick you up because you were there when they were down on a knee.
Absolutely. Karl, what's it like? What are you feeling as you're telling your story now?
I mean, I've told this story a lot, so it's pretty routine for me now. It's and it's when you ask, how was your life different before, or what was like the comparison, and it's interesting because a lot of especially like that year is kind of hazy memory wise because of chemo and radiation, and then also just like having brain tumors and stuff. So I don't really remember or have like a strong memory of that sort of stuff, like what it was like before. I mean, I had very good childhood, very supportive family and stuff, but there's a lot of that, like how I feel about the story. I mean, it's something that I'm proud of it, but I don't, and it's something that I think it's such a part of what drives me that it's not like it's not super emotionally charged about it. Like some people like go through trauma and have trouble speaking about it, which is totally understandable. I never had trouble explaining what was going on or wanting to talk about it with people, because I think part of what makes it makes it a heavier burden to bear is if you try and hold it all yourself. But if you're sharing with other people and you're explaining what you're going through and how you're feeling, then you're no longer trying to carry it alone. And again, that burden gets a lot lighter. And so I would think the term that my family kind of was using was something called down days, where you just we're just kind of not feeling great about the whole situation. I just tell my parents I'm having a down day, and they'd be more so like be supportive, and just having that kind of, and actually one of the things that really taught me, I mean, I got that from the swimming. It was like being very conscious of how, like, aware of how my body felt physically, but then also that experience, like the brain tumors, also helped me kind of be very aware of like how I'm emotionally feeling, just because there's a lot of stuff going on. So it gave me I guess, crash course in and like emotional like management, and kind of being aware of how am I feeling, what's going on, and why am I feeling this way, which is very helpful when you're just trying to handle any sort of stressful situation, or even just daily life. Because I know now, like for me, I get, if my blood sugar gets low, I call it either like hangry or annoyed, where I'm just like, I'm angry or annoyed at something, like, but no, I'm just gonna need to eat something. I'm not actually mad. It's just my blood sugar is low. So there's a lot of kind of little things that are emotions that are surrounding it that impact on a daily basis that I've learned from that experience. But it's not like the experience itself is one that I'm very proud of, and is very much helped me get focus and perspective in my life, and understand what the sort of impact I want to have on the world is, because, and which is about human connection and bringing people together with the podcast and the sort of work I'm doing, because it really showed me the importance of building communities and having these relationships and supporting each other. So it's I don't want to say I'm proud that I had kids, but like I'm proud of the way my family and I responded to it. Um, and I'm grateful. Excuse me, grateful for the lessons I learned from it. Still can't learn how to inhale saliva though. That's still not a good idea.
Oh, yeah. I'll never learn how to do that either. So as I'm listening to you, Karl, there are so many things I'm taking away from it, and I would like to ask you about your podcast in just a minute. As
Sure.
I'm listening to you, I'm thinking about, there you are, 15 years old. I was 18 when I had the knee injury, and over the course of the next couple of years, the first three surgeries of the seven that I've had. And part of the research that I've done for the book and for the Plan to Be Your Best method is, for those of us who are teenagers or teenagers today who are going through some kind of adversity, one thing we all have in common is that our brains are not fully developed with the part of the brain that helps us manage those kinds of challenges. The prefrontal cortex, for example, it doesn't mature until we're in our mid 20s. And that's the part of our brain that helps regulate emotion and reactions to circumstances. That's the part of the brain that helps us do planning. And it has me thinking of, and I'm listening for, and I picked up on, that was a that dynamic that's in the mix of what we were experiencing back then. And looking back on it, then we have the maturity, the journey that we've traveled to gain. And I think you used the word perspective on it all.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely. Uh, well, I mean, the one thing I'd like to say is that getting the brain tumor diagnosis definitely uh, removed that teenage invincibility complex most 15-year-old boys have. We're like, oh, nothing's going to hurt me. And they just have that kind of bulletproof feeling. That definitely removed that misconception. And I think I mean, it's hard to tell for me because there's so many uh, like a non-standard events happening to my brain. So I don't know what the exact development impact that it had on things, but um, I think it's so yeah, I think it's weird that the or I'm not really sure. I don't again, it's like that whole period. I just kind of having all the support around me when I was going through that meant that I didn't have to do a lot of heavy lifting when it came to decisions or I just kind of was able to focus on like the schooling. Like I said, I got like a tutor and stuff, and so I wasn't. They tried to keep it as like normal, like a like college, high school experience as possible. Um, like there was one of the like one day it was like a Friday, and I was it was the start of a new chemo cycle, so I was um went to go get chemo that morning, but it was the Friday of like a homecoming dance or something like that, and so because it was right after getting the chemo, my counts were still high enough I could go, but it just meant that it was like the maximum amount of nausea because of all of the stuff just been pumped into me, and so I had been prescribed my favorite medication in the world called Zofran. It's for chemically induced nausea. Little yellow pills. You can take 4 a day. They each last for 4 hours, but you're not awake for more than 16 hours when you're on chemo. But I just brought the whole bottle to the dance because they're doing like bag checks as you walk in. I held up the little bottle to the chaperones and said, if you take this from me, I'm puking everywhere in a couple hours. And they like, let me keep it. And like halfway through the dance, I started to feel a little nauseous, pop one of those. And by the time I finished swallowing, it wasn't nauseous anymore. And so I was able to enjoy this kind of standard high school activity despite having basically gotten chemotherapy that earlier that morning and having a tube sticking out of my chest. But it was the idea was to make it as normal a high school experience as possible.
Yes.
But and I credit that a lot to, or that's to all the people again that were supportive and not trying to, and because they asked me like, hey, okay, you got this diagnosis, do you want to like take a year off from school? And I said, no, let's keep going. I want to keep trying to graduate on time. Let's figure something out. And so because I had that like that mindset of, yeah, it's gonna be rough, but let's just keep moving forward. Don't let it derail you. Don't let it uh gonna keep you back or down. Just keep more. It's gonna be harder, but just keep moving. Um, the people around me rose to the occasion and were supportive of that. But it was, um, I think that mindset. I'll initially I credit to just like the swimming that I did, because it was always about pushing yourself, and because especially in swimming, it's unless you're like in a relay, you're basically it's you versus the clock is the biggest opponent. The people in other lanes, yeah, you can kind of draft off them sometimes, and having a competitor helps motivate you some. But really, your main competition is yourself, and so there's this mindset of how do I improve? How do I keep going? How do I improve myself like continuously or as much as possible? And so that mindset of just keep going forward and keep trying to improving and growing is something that helped me get through the chemo and the radiation stuff. Because actually, I remember when I was in middle school, there I had a friend um, who just kind of one year was just gone and wasn't in school anymore. And then later on, I didn't see him for a few years, and I later saw him in he was in a wheelchair, and I was talking. And he also had a brain tumor that spread to his spine, and so we had to basically stop doing school and stuff. And so he kind of put his life on pause for that, and it was a lot harder. Obviously, I got lucky that mine didn't spread to my spine, but it was like just the the trajectory of his life was impacted a lot more than mine was, because I was able to keep moving forward. And so I think that is another big lesson that I took from that whole experience is that, yeah, well, especially like these days with what's going on in like the world and the job market and everything, and society, of just, yeah, things are rough for a lot of people, but the only way to keep
Pardon
moving
me.
is forward and keep trying and keep and do focus on what you can control and move forward as much as you can. And the moment you kind of give up is when you've really lost.
And so many good points there, Carl. And for those of you who are watching my reactions, since the seventh surgery on my left knee, I get dozens of blasts of pain like this randomly every day. And when it's elevated, it's a dozen or so an hour. To your point, keep on moving forward. I don't fight the pain. I fight for the next moment. And to your point, whether you're a teenager going through some kind of adversity or at any age, to keep growing through it. I think this was the term that you used, keep moving forward. That's part of what are earmarks of a real strong resilience. And I can tell from your swimming that you gained a lot from that. And also how important it is for the support system, your family and others who came to be there for you. I'd say that's foundational at any time in life, but especially for teenagers or younger. If you know of someone who's dealing with some kind of significant challenge, rush in and support them. If you're a young person, perhaps in your teens and facing some kind of adversity, ask for help and get the help, because it's going to help you grow through it and strengthen your own unique resilience and find ways to thrive, perhaps like you never have before. So thank you so much for that, Carl. The other thing I'm thinking about is the way that you're telling your story. And part of the Plan to Be Your Best, one particular chapter is about exactly that. The Triumph chapter, it's one of the 8 paths of intentionality. Part of it has to do with ways of telling your story. And you're wonderfully authentic about it. You're honest about it. Um, it's almost as if you're telling your story, truly reliving it in a way.
I mean, yeah, when you're, I think one of I'm all about human connection and helping people build bonds between each other. But I think a lot of people struggle to connect with others because they aren't connected with themselves and don't understand why they do what they do, or why they're on the path they're on, or what they really care about deep down, what's kind of the real values are for them. And I was very fortunate to work with a an amazing coach. Her name's Miley Colmer, and she's a relationship networking coach. And through her program is how I kind of learned how to craft that story that I told at the beginning. But there's a part of the process that we went through includes an exercise that I think was originally developed by Toyota called the 5 Whys exercise.
Mhm.
That I mean, they designed it for business purposes of like, okay, what we want to introduce this feature to a car, and then ask people, so why would people care about this feature? And then when you get that next answer, you can ask, well, why is that important? And basically keep drilling down until you've done it about 4 or 5 times. When you reach that answer at the very core, or at the last answer, that fifth why is usually a really core uh, part of someone's identity or their values that has a strong emotional connection to it. And so that is the sort of messaging you want to put if you're trying to promote a feature of a car. Well, for individuals, if you, instead of like, this is something else I learned from Miley, is like, instead of asking people, so what do you do? Because it's such a surface level, who cares sort of question, but learning about why people are in the career they're in, or why they care about the things they care about, and continuing to dig down into why they chose that, or why they're doing what they're doing, or why they enjoy it. If you get really dig down it, you get to usually it's some sort of life event or circumstances between the ages of 8 or 10 years old. For me, it was 15. But there's usually some sort of core circumstance, usually a lack of something or an abundance of something, that shaped a shapes our worldview and personality, and points us in the direction our life goes in. And I've worked with clients in this myself when I was running my business, helping them do this for their companies, their startups and stuff, that they aren't mindful or aware of what's actually driving their behavior, why they care so much about this, the reason they're starting their company or doing their job. And so when you walk them through this process of asking, so why is that important, and repeating that iteration, there's usually a moment where they have this aha moment where they connect the dots between why they're doing what they're doing today with kind of the core of who they are as a human being, or what are the core events that shaped who they are as a human being. And there's this, like, they go from looking at you to looking past you at the wall behind you, and they're kind of staring off into space for 30 seconds as this dot gets connected, and they have this big epiphany. And those are always so fun to see, because you can tell that they have a much better understanding and connection with who they are as a human being than they did before. And so I think the value of, or the reason why the story I told feels so authentic is because it really is. It's connected to what drives who I am as a person, and the impact I want to have on the world, and the sort of uh, the way I show up when I'm connecting with people. And so it's the when you're trying to tell a story, or kind of trying to connect with people, or even just connect with yourself, digging deep into those core moments that are often can be dark and uncomfortable. And there's a reason why people aren't like touching on those memories if they're really traumatic. But it's something that at least knowing they're there and what they are and how they've impacted you will, if you don't share with other people, but just knowing it internally can help give you that drive to keep going when things seem difficult, because you know that you're not on just some random path or random like job. It's something that is actually deeply inspiring or connected with your identity, and that makes it a lot more compelling of a path to be on.
Do you have a concise statement, a choice of words that you typically use to describe your why, your personal why and your professional why? And is there a difference?
Um, so the way, I mean, I guess the kind of most the way I describe my why or my purpose. Um, so if I could say, like, if I could snap my fingers and return the levels of human connection and empathy to what they were 20, 25 years ago, but doing that would kill me, I'd still do it, because I think that a lot of the problems facing the world today would be solved, or at least easier to solve, with more human connection and empathy. But since that's not working, then the podcast I'm running and the sort of career path that I'm on right now is the next best thing. And so it's I think that my metric for success is how many people I can connect, and how much I can help people connect with those around them and themselves.
That's fantastic. Let's talk about both your podcast and your career path in just a moment. I'd like to just point out that that's where the plan to be your best approach begins. The P in plan stands for prepare. It's the first path of intentionality. And I use the word intentionality a lot because of the idea that the level of pain needs to be matched by the level of intentionality. And the prepare path is all about anchoring in one of the things that adversity and pain can take away, and that is your sense of self. So to re-anchor in your identity and your values is where we begin. And it's clear that your journey has been an evolution of that to this point where it's strong for you. It's very strong. What is your career path? What are you looking to do next?
So I'm looking for client success manager roles in B2B health tech, med tech, and SaaS. And the main way I've been going about trying to find connections for that is I started a podcast beginning of this year called the Human Connection Podcast, where I talk with experts in marketing and branding and leadership and sales and HR and events on how companies can build stronger connections with clients and investors and employees and stakeholders. Because it doesn't matter if a business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, which is human to human. And for any good business relationship to work, you need two things. You need mutually beneficial transactions, which is like rebar, and you need personal connections, which is like concrete. If you just have one or the other, you're in trouble, because concrete alone is going to crack and fade over time, and rebar by itself is kind of hard to build on top of. And unfortunately, most companies these days have a bunch of rebar sticking out of the ground and are wondering why no one wants to sit on it with them. And so I think episode 121 dropped yesterday, and I've recorded over
Congratulations.
130 of them. And I'm working on turning it into a book. So one thing I want to do during the kind of lull of the holiday season is, when I'm done many meetings and stuff, is to make some progress on the book. But it's really about how if companies are looking to scale and grow in a way that's like sustainable and manageable and long-term success, then investing in their employees and in these relationships with the clients and the humans behind the business. Because if all the employees don't show up to a company one day, you don't have a business anymore. Like it doesn't exist without the people that do the work that make the business run, that connect with the clients and stuff. And so the more companies are willing to invest in the human to human side of business, then the more they're going to be standing out from the competition and be creating the sorts of communities and relationships that are make them a lot more resilient to all the disruptions and challenges facing businesses today. And I think a lot of the problems, like the lack of trust in big business and stuff, is all kind of self-inflicted by the executives that aren't really leading. They're just like executing tasks and are been so focused on efficiency and the bottom line, they forgot that the real long-term success and the real uh, power that comes from building a strong relationship with the people involved. And so um, the podcast is about how companies can do that. And it's been a lot of fun to connect with these all the guests I've had on the show, and I'm looking forward to doing it through 2026 and beyond.
Pardon me. Just as pain happens in the moment, so does resilience. One of the things that I use is the 3 steps of resilience. I have enough practice at it that I rip through them: tune in, plan, and be my best. The idea of what I just do in that moment is put my focus right back on you, and I move forward. There's no fighting the pain. As I was listening to you, I was thinking about the guests that you've had on, and if there are any particular themes that you've heard through the course of these 100+ episodes that maybe even surprised you, anything in particular?
There was one recently that I noted as we were recording the episode, which was that one of the keys to improving like a performance and success of a business and the success of teams and employees and stuff like that is to, which seems kind of paradoxical, is to actually slow down. So
Yeah.
I had a woman on the show who was running. She was working on like a leadership. She was a leadership coach with a executive who was having trouble connecting with her teams, and so she had this. She started, like, this woman started doing 10 minutes of every beginning of each meeting was just small talk, connecting with people, like nothing about them on the meeting agenda. We're going to connect as human beings and talk about uh, personal things, nothing to do with business, for 10 minutes at the beginning of each meeting. And while that seems weird for a lot of people, I'm sure listening, we just got to dive into the meeting because there's so much to get done. We got to keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. Those little 10-minute conversations and check-ins with people where you just talk to them like human beings with personal lives and families and interests and stuff, built really strong connections with her team. And so this executive was able to lead more effectively because there was a stronger sense of connection between her and the people she was working with. And then one of the last episodes I recorded earlier this week was talking with a guy who runs he runs a law firm. In the last 3 years, grew from started 3 years ago, is now over $2 million in revenue. But he has all of his kind of frontline phone intake salespeople spend the first 10 minutes of every call just listening to people and making sure that, because people are calling because they're stressed out, they're freaking out, they're not in a great shape. But having someone, even if they don't end up working with them, they can't afford them, they're not the right fit or whatever, but just taking 10 minutes to listen to someone and make sure they feel heard and empathized with. And they got I don't remember the exact number. They got a ton of positive Google reviews from people saying they listen to me, they point me in the right direction, and as even if they didn't become clients, they still left a great review because they just felt heard as a human being who is struggling with something, and that's catapulted their business from, like I said, 3 years ago they were just open. He just opened his doors, and now he's over $2 million because they're spend 10 minutes just listening to what people need help with and empathizing with them and connecting like humans do makes a huge difference in the success of the business. And there's even like someone else was there's another woman running a marketing agency who she started her own company because she had been working corporate, and when she started had her first kid, she wanted to work um like she get like a working mom sort of relationship, working parent sort of thing with the company, and they wouldn't let her do it. So she left and she started her own agency, and then hired a bunch of other people that were also kind of working parents. So they all kind of got the same experience, and she um, was able to like build strong connections with them so much that they her clients would often try to, like, they'd ask for repeat business, like, I want to give you, want to work more with you, more, what more can we do with you? We want to work, and they would request the same employees they'd worked with. And even in some cases, she said some of her clients would offer her employees jobs internally with them, and they would get turned down because that employee was felt so connected to her company because there's that connection of, and she gets my experience, and there's a deeper connection than just the salary or all that kind of the rebar part of the connection. There's that really strong concrete base around the relationship that has allowed her to retain the same employees for like 7+ years. And again, in a marketing sense, we said just it's like 2 or 3 years is the average. She's had the same employees for over 7 years who have been actively like approached by their clients saying, "Hey, well, here's a package to come work for us," and they've turned them down because there's this human connection to the business relationship that makes it way more successful and robust and resilient.
So much value there. How can people find your podcast?
It's the human connection podcast.com is the website. It's on YouTube, Spotify, RSS, and Apple Podcasts. And actually, I had someone reach out to me on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago. Um, said he was found my show because he was looking for a podcast to listen to when he was on in his Tesla and doing some road trip, and he searched, he like just typed in the word human in the Apple Podcast searching, and mine was the first one that showed up. So having not like officially promoted the show on these like paid marketing channels, knowing it's showing up there is pretty awesome. But yeah, if you do Human Connection Podcast on Apple Podcast or YouTube or Spotify, you'll find it there. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn, Karl Pontau. I think I'm the only one person with that name on LinkedIn, so it should be pretty easy to find me that way.
That's awesome. You and I got connected through Steve Romano,
Yep.
And he is a grand connector. I forget exactly how he refers to it, but he lives that and breathes that day in and day out. I'm so glad that he's put the two of us together. I'm so enjoying this conversation. So elaborate a little bit more. What's your approach to networking, and what are you seeing in the market right now?
I mean, I think it's networking is even more powerful than ever because there's overall the lack of trust in marketing and in business. And so if even more than ever, if you like, no ad is going to be more effective than someone you have a relationship with saying, "Hey, I've worked with this guy or this company, you should work with them too." Even before AI and all the kind of last few years of um, issues with the business world, that's always going to be the most effective marketing is referrals. And so um, I'm always looking for ways to connect people with the in my network together, or with either it's like for referral partnerships or clients or both, that sort of thing it brings me a lot of joy. I actually learned over the Labor Day weekend, hanging out with my parents, and my dad casually mentioned, like, did you know our last name in French means bridge? Pont is French for bridge. And actually, I was talking to someone, she's up in Canada a week ago, and she said, oh, yeah, your name in French means bridge too. So the guy is all about human connection, bringing people together. His last name is literally bridge too. So on my LinkedIn profile and on all my posts since then, I've been using the hashtag Karl the Bridge. And and there's times when I hear back from people after I've connected them with, oh, we had a great connection, we hit it off, we're going to be working together. Where I literally do a happy dance in my chair or in my kitchen whenever I hear it, because it brings me so much joy to know that these two people that uh, hadn't connected before are now doing something together, and magnifying the impact they're having on the world because I brought them together. And so that sort of that's a life fulfilling purpose I have, is to connect people like that. And so um, it's almost second nature to me, where I'm meeting with someone for the first time and I'm already thinking like, okay, who can I connect them with? And actually, for my podcast, when I'm recording with people, the last half of the meeting is a chance for me to see, okay, who can I connect you with in my network and make some introductions, because I want to add that sort of value to people's lives.
I want to say to Steve Ramona, thank you so much for connecting me with you, Karl. And to those of you who are watching, I encourage you to connect with Karl and be part of his networking circle and help him connect with others. That's one of the things that makes the world go around. That's one of the ways that in community we can all be resilient. Curious, we've covered a lot of ground, and you and I could talk all afternoon as I'm thinking about some of the things that you're saying, and even experiencing more blasts of pain here, that the idea that pain doesn't define us, pain doesn't define me or you, your resilience does. My resilience defines me. And you've been describing how your resilience is the foundation of really who you are. It's defining for you. You've got a powerful, powerful story and a powerful resilience.
Thanks. Yeah, I think early on after the diagnosis, I was talking with my parents about kind of the approach, how to avoid being defined as, oh, it's Karl, the guy who had cancer, or the guy, and not making it, that's not the part that defines you. It's the way you respond to it, the way you move through it, the way you rise above, the way you react to it, or respond. And what you do in spite of it or in defiance of it is what you should focus on as the defining characteristics. It's not the disease or the chronic condition or the hardship that is the focus. It's the way you overcome it. And that's what also makes the story so compelling, is because we all struggle with something. Everyone in the world has something they struggle with. It's part of the human condition. And it's the way you and the people around you overcome those struggles that makes the story compelling. And if you don't have, if you, I've never seen anyone say they have nothing they struggle with at all, ever. It is just, that is one of the realities of life, and it's one of the kind of strange paradoxes, is that we get meaning from overcoming challenges, and if and we it makes like the struggles and the problems and the challenges make life interesting and fulfilling, because you're able to overcome those challenges. And I think it's, if everything was going to already done for you and there were no problems in facing your life, it'd be really boring. And actually, are like we invent problems to overcome when things are really when we don't have enough challenges in front of us because we are wired, our brains are wired to want to identify and overcome challenges that way. And so the way to the mindset for facing these sort of obstacles is not the obstacle doesn't define you. It's the way you respond to it, and the way you overcome it. That is how you can uh, find meaning in the challenges you're facing.
One of the most encouraging people I know is Ben McKean, and he shared with me back in June The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, and we've had a conversation back and forth on, and this is part of what my journey has been, especially in the past few years, is that one of the themes in The Prophet is that there are two values to a journey with adversity, a journey with whatever the pain points might be. One, there's the transactional value. It's the experience of the pain and everything that comes with that, the mental journey, the emotional journey. But then there's another kind of value, and it's the transformational value. And Khalil Gibran would submit that, and what he teaches in essence is that the two must exist. There's the transactional and the transformational. And thinking of it this way, because you're describing it in your own wonderful way, Karl, the idea that the pain or the adversity might dig into you, and in digging in, it creates a void. Filling that void with how you respond to it, filling that void with softness, is and hope and encouragement is what it makes that transformational. And it's been that way for me. I'm one of the things, if I may share, I'd had a breakthrough this past spring. So far, there's no solution to the challenges that I'm facing. Surgery is no longer an option, and the idea of what do I need to do to persevere through this, thrive, and use my resilience. If I never get relief, how do I get through this to the end of my days? And one of the things that I've, in the list of about a dozen different things that I identified that I need to do, one of them is to love more, to be, not to really overuse the term, but to be my best in all those different ways, including giving grace more to myself, grace more to others. I've never been more patient. I've always been a patient soul, but the idea of I'm filling the void that this pain is cutting into me. Is that you or me?
That was me.
Oh, okay. So the idea of taking that Khalil Gibran, the prophet analogy, that what I'm hearing you describe is that there's been that transactional experience of everything that you've gone through, but there's also the transformational value that has helped you, if you may allow me to say, your character growth shines through. You're talking about how you respond. Your responsibility to what you've gone through is a model for all of us. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
Let me do a quick time check. I could talk to you all afternoon. And when it comes to conversations regarding resilience, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, I actually got to wrap it up. It's been a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation some more in the future meetings.
We will do just that. Thank you, Karl. You are the best. Have yourself a good, happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
Take care now.